Hi guys, Cinematic Recapped here. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm gonna explain an American science fiction movie, called Chronicle. The movie tells the story of a friendless Seattle teenager named Andrew Detmer who often experiences bullies at his school. Not only that, he also lives with his abusive and alcoholic father, Richard, and his loving mother, Karen, who is battling with cancer. As a precaution against his father's abuse, Andrew begins to record his daily life, and he tells his father that he will be filming everything from then on. Every morning, he always sees his sick mother, who wishes him a good day at school before being picked up by his cousin and closest friend, Matt, to go to school together. When they arrive, Andrew excitedly shows his favorite spots at school, like the places he usually eats and hangs out. Unfortunately, some of the students bully him as usual and take his camera away, making it as a joke. They end up giving the camera back, but in a rude way. After school, Matt invites him to a party to help him mingle, but Andrew clearly refuses. However, Matt insists on taking his cousin to the party since he is a senior at the school, and Andrew reluctantly agrees. At home, he is happily looking at his first recording while his father suddenly comes into his room. Somehow, Richard angrily smacks him across the face, pushing him to the floor. After that, Andrew and Matt finally go to the party, where the two of them split up. Even though his cousin warns him not to record the party, Andrew does not heed his words and continues to do so. He then meets a girl named Casey who is also recording her activities for her vlog, but Matt approaches them out of nowhere and awkwardly tries to impress Casey. Shortly after, Andrew gets into an altercation with an attendee who accuses him of filming his girlfriend. Because of that, the man throws his drink in his face, and Andrew decides to head out into the parking lot, where he weeps while cleaning the dirt off his camera. Suddenly, Steve, a popular student from the school, finds him and invites Andrew to join him. Steve says that he and Matt have discovered a large hole in the woods, so he enlists Andrew's help to record their discovery. Once there, the group hears a strange sound coming out of the large hole, where Steve eventually dives in to explore, followed by a drunken Matt. Therefore, Andrew is forced to follow them into the hole, and they travel through a small tunnel where they discover a massive glowing crystalline object. Strangely, it causes inexplicable phenomena as the trio approach it. When the strange object begins to react violently, Matt is thrown backwards against a wall by an unseen force, while Steve develops a nosebleed and the camera eventually turns off. A few weeks later, Andrew, Matt, and Steve seem to have developed telekinetic powers. As they play together in the backyard, Matt throws a baseball at Steve, and surprisingly, the ball swerves right and hits Steve from the side. Matt then throws the ball at Andrew, and Andrew manages to stop it mid-air. At the same time, his nose starts bleeding for some reason. Furthermore, the group plays with Lego pieces in the house and levitates the pieces without touching them. After that, the three decide to return to the hole, but they find that dirt has filled it completely. The authorities also come and tell the boys to leave the dangerous spot. On their way home, Steve and Andrew share their respective stories about their families. It is revealed that Richard used to work as a firefighter, but he was injured on the job, so he now stays at home and collects insurance checks. On the other hand, Steve also shares that his parents often quarrel recently. In his bedroom, Andrew practices levitating his camera as he listens his father on the phone pleading for someone to get more medical aid for his wife. The following day, Andrew spends his day with his mother, and the two enjoy their time together. He then meets Matt, who is practicing his powers by the lake, to ask him if he thinks that they can do more with their powers. At school, Matt says that he was able to lift his bed off the ground without a nosebleed. He theorizes that their powers are similar to a muscle, which has to be trained to make them stronger. Hence, Andrew suggests going to a public place to practice their powers, and they decide to do some harmless pranks at a supermarket, starting with Andrew moving a shopping trolley away, Steve levitating a teddy bear to scare a girl, and Matt trying to get chewing gum out of a guy's mouth. At a diner, Andrew tries to stab Matt with a fork, but his hand does not hurt at all, showing how their powers can even protect them from sharp objects. Since then, the boys start to use their powers foolishly by moving a food trolley, destroying the dishes in the process. It even goes too far after Andrew telekinetically pushes a motorist off the road and into a nearby pond. The boys immediately stop their car and rush out to help the driver. Fortunately, they barely manage to save the man's life after Steve dives into the water to retrieve him. After that incident, Steve is really shocked and Matt confronts Andrew, saying that he has put someone in danger. Matt also realizes how dangerous their powers can be and insists that they should limit their use of them, particularly against living beings or when they are angry. This traumatic event marks the first turning point in the movie, specifically through the eyes of Andrew, who appears aloof and distant. The next day, Matt and Andrew meet Steve, who is able to fly. Steve encourages them to try their new powers, but Matt has a hard time getting himself off the ground before Andrew can join Steve flying above him. Soon, the three of them are playing football in midair as they soar through the clouds. Not long after, a plane suddenly flies past them, knocking Steve unconscious. Because of this, Andrew immediately flies towards him to catch his body, and they both are falling to the ground. Luckily, they both end up unscathed, only Andrew has a nosebleed. Matt also falls to the ground, and they are elated to know that they are the first humans to fly. After that, they spend a carefree evening at Steve's house, where Andrew tells his friends that the day has been the best day of his entire life. The following morning at school, the trio plan to fly around the world together following graduation, with Andrew in particular desiring to visit Tibet because of its beauty and peaceful nature. After school, Andrew and Steve hang out on top of a building, where Steve marvels at Andrew's utilization of his powers to levitate his camera with finesse. Andrew then says that he had been lonely for a long time before they got these powers. Although he and Matt are cousins, he did not get along with him much. Steve then encourages Andrew to enter the school's talent show, saying that he will help Andrew with the performance. As a result, Andrew prepares for his performance and shows his outfit to his mother, who is pleased with him because he has been hanging out with his friends a lot lately. However, Richard calls him before he can leave the house, saying that he is suspicious of him. He implies that he knows Andrew is up to something. At the talent show, Matt operates Andrew's camera, and he also sees Casey, who is also recording the show. After a while, Steve and Andrew appear on stage and begin their show, which amazes their fellow students by disguising their powers as a magic act. To celebrate their success, the trio relish their newfound popularity at a house party, where everyone welcomes them. At that time, Andrew experiences how it is like to be noticed and appreciated for the first time. He then meets a red-haired girl at the party, and they start flirting with each other. While he is having fun at the party, Matt is left with his camera. Meanwhile, Casey spots him and invites him to leave the party. Because of that, Steve now takes over the camera and looks for Andrew upstairs, only to find that a drunken Andrew ends up throwing up on the red-haired girl. He then comes to the room and laughing while recording the aftermath, but Andrew does not take it lightly. Instead, he yells at Steve, telling him to leave. As Karen's condition worsens, Andrew becomes increasingly withdrawn and aggressive. Later, Richard is looking for something in Andrew's room, and he finds the camera. Therefore, he confronts Andrew about spending too much money on the camera while they barely have any money for Karen's medication. When Richard strikes him during the argument, Andrew violently fights back, using his powers to overpower Richard. He then throws his father to the floor and flees the house. On the other hand, Matt suffers nosebleeds when he is with Casey, even though he has not used his powers. This indicates that one of them are overexerting their powers. Meanwhile, Andrew is sobbing in the middle of a storm as Steve suddenly flies out to him, saying that he had a nosebleed and also heard Andrew's voice calling out to him. Steve attempts to console him, but he tells Steve to leave him alone. Since Steve does not want to leave him, Andrew becomes increasingly frustrated, just before Steve is suddenly struck by lightning and killed. A few days later, Andrew, Matt, and all of their classmates attend Steve's funeral. After the service, Matt confronts Andrew about what happened to Steve. He forces Andrew to tell the truth, but Andrew denies responsibility. Instead, he avoids the confrontation and flies away. Unexpectedly, Andrew really misses Steve as he privately begs for forgiveness at Steve's grave the next day, believing that his powers were taking over him. He then goes back to the hole where they got their powers and sees that it is now overgrown with grass, forming an unknown pattern around it. Due to the incident at the house party, Andrew is once again ostracized at school. The bullies also tease him by mimicking him vomiting. As a result, Andrew is overcome by anger, and he decides to use his powers to rip teeth out of a bully's mouth in front of a crowd of other students. He even shows the camera the pieces of teeth and describes how he took them. After that, he begins to identify himself as an apex predator of humans and rationalizes that he should not feel guilty for using his powers to hurt those weaker than him. That night, Matt breaks into Andrew's room after finding out about what happened at school. He frustratedly explains how important it is for them to follow their rules as they are getting too powerful, but Andrew ignores his words. Therefore, Matt throws a punch to him, but Andrew manages to stop his fist, and he eventually leaves the house. Desperate to pay for his mother's medication, Andrew disguises himself with his father's old firefighter gear and uses his powers to steal money. His first targets are the men on his street who always make jokes with him. He immediately throws all of them away and ends up knocking them unconscious. He then takes all their money and goes to a gas station for his next target. He initially disables the cashier and then takes all the money in the cash register. As the cashier chases after him with a shotgun, Andrew swipes the shotgun away, causing an explosion that knocks him unconscious. Because of that, he is hospitalized, and Richard is called in by the authorities. At his bedside, a distraught Richard informs an unconscious Andrew that Karen has died, and he blames Andrew for her death. He constantly yells at Andrew, asking him to apologize for his wife's death. Just as Richard is about to strike him, Andrew awakens and abruptly grabs his arm before blowing out the wall of the room. Elsewhere, at a birthday party, Matt experiences a severe nosebleed and senses that something is wrong with Andrew. After seeing a news alert on TV about a mysterious explosion downtown, he and Casey immediately head to the hospital. Once there, they see Andrew flying out the hospital room while dangling his father before unceremoniously dropping him. Matt immediately flies up and saves Richard, lowering him to the ground, with everyone finding out his powers to fly. He then gets into the car again with Casey, but Andrew finds them and lifts the car before dropping it. Fortunately, Matt manages to get Casey to safety before attempting to reason with Andrew. Meanwhile, chaos erupts across the city while people are recording the unusual event. Matt finally flies up to Andrew, trying to calm him down and convince him to stop his actions. However, Andrew is too far gone in his rage and attacks Matt, throwing a bus at him. An exhausted Andrew lands at a building, and Matt gets up to fight back. Their fight takes them across the city, crashing through buildings and hurling vehicles. At the end of their fight, the two exhaust themselves and wind up in a plaza where the police surround them. Matt keeps begging Andrew to stop, but he does not listen to him. At the same time, the police finally open fire, but Andrew is able to stop all the bullets. His rage finally reaches a breaking point and he begins to violently destroy the surrounding buildings. Realizing that Andrew cannot be stopped or reasoned with, Matt reluctantly impales Andrew with a steel spear from a nearby statue, killing him instantly. As the police approach them, Matt manages to fly away even though he is injured. Sometime later, Matt is seen flying over snowy mountaintops and finally landing in Tibet with Andrew's camera. He talks to the camera as if it was Andrew, tearfully apologizing to him and vowing to use his powers for good and find out what happened to them. He eventually points the camera at a Tibetan monastery in the distance before flying away, leaving the camera behind. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.